Hi everyone, welcome to week 4, and I am going to be going over Photoshop tools on how to make a composite for your poster layout so that you can understand how best to clean the edges of multiple images. So let's get started. So let me share my screen, and here we go. So the assignment is a poster layout for your sustainable theme. And it's important to remember that you are pulling in multiple images into one composite. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and I'm going to walk you through some multiple tools in Photoshop to isolate the subject matter of the photograph, or if you want to pick up something from the photograph, whatever it may be, you're basically pulling multiple images into one composite. And that's what we're going to be doing. And this is the beginning of really digital imaging. And this is why Photoshop was created, because we all need to do that in advertising, special effects, animation, every digital media, every graphic design you can possibly imagine. Everyone is manipulating either type, photographs, images, whatever it may be. And it comes in all shapes and sizes. So here, let's get started. So here are some examples of hyperrealism. So somebody, this is student work, of course, and pulling in multiple images such as bubbles, ducks, and water, being able to make them feel realistic and fun. And composition is based upon your sketch. So we'll be doing that as well. So I'm just going to do an overview of what we're going to cover. And something of this nature, the final touch of this piece would have been if there was a little bit of splash water here. Whenever water hits a surface, there's always a little bit of a splash, which would give a little bit of whiteness here. So that would be one element left to get, and that's the fine tuning. But that's at the very, very end. Really, at this point, you just want to get the rough composite, get all the images in, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So things, either it's hyperrealism or cubism or collage or exercises to do cubism. And this is an exercise that we will walk through, which will be a different video as far as cubism. So a student walked through the exercise that I gave them, and this is what he came up for to do the cubism piece, utilizing this exercise. And then you go about cleaning different composites and photographs. And when you get close to Photoshop, as you can see, you have a checkered board. And in that checkerboard is when you are using transparency, meaning that upon pulling up the layers, here's my window, I'm going to call up the layers. And we did a little bit of a walk through some layers in Photoshop, but we'll always do more. And so this is a window of layers, and you can find layers under window here. And you must always have that open, as well as always having the swatches as we talked about before. And then also the tools. So you want to organize your real estate, as we say. And I'll put that over here, put that over there. And that's very important to get yourself organized. And so we'll do things. So this was an original site for the hyperrealism that came from Kathleen, who did this realism here. So this is what she started with, was this photograph. And then she went to get all of her elements, all the photographs that she would like, as you see here. And that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So let's get started. So we'll go back to Photoshop. And one of the things that's important is I want to make sure that you can see the tools as we use them today. And so that this way they're all here for you. So let me close this out. There you go. And we pulled this up. So some of the things that you're doing is and we're going to be speaking to our librarian next week. So we'll have that video for you as well. And that means public domain images and copyright images and so forth. So at all times when you're working, you always must remember that when you use photographs which are not yours, you must give credit to where you have gotten the photo. And that's really important because that promotes the photographer and it gives credibility that these are not yours. So that's an important thing. And if this was a real client working for a real client to create a poster for the sustainable theme, the client more than likely would either pay for the copyright or pay the photographer. And so that's important to remember when you are working with the aspect of multiple pictures which are not yours. So first thing we want to do is to create the layout. So let's do that. So we go to File over here in Photoshop, File New. And as you know, you see all the formats that are given to you. We are going to do 13 by 19. So it's going to be a vertical poster. And most posters are vertical. And normally 300 would be a professional output. But for us, because of education and because of size, we are going to use 150. And that will make the files be smaller because you will be sending me your files. If you want me to troubleshoot your file, you need to send me the PSD using your SUNY email, OneDrive, to send it to me so that you can share it with me and I can download it. And then I can troubleshoot any file that you may have. And I will do that in these videos throughout the course. So we have 13 by 19 inches. We have 150 DPI. For our poster, because it's going to be print, we do remember CMYK is for print, RGB is for screen. And always, it's in good, in your best interest to always create transparent. Now, why do they have these other colors here is because a lot of people don't understand about transparency. So they want to put color for people who may not understand transparency or who really know exactly that white is going to be white as a background. But transparency is always good for us because it's a lot easier to understand the layers. So let's do that. And everything else is okay, and we create. So now we have a blank file, and of course you want to always remember to save this immediately before you get started, because if you save it immediately, you know that whenever you save future saves, it's going to save it in the right location. Let's do that. So we go back up to here and go File, Save As. On my computer, I'm on a PC, and I'm going to find my files, which is important for you to always keep your files organized. So I'm going to put this under Imaging. I'm going to make a folder, and you would call this folder Digital Imaging. Double click it. Now I'm in Digital Imaging. And I'm going to call this a poster. And again, as I mentioned to you before, it's always 01 for my first draft. Tomorrow when I work on this, it will be 02. Always a good file naming protocol to have your own, and that is mine. Okay, now the next thing that's important is to come up here to Image and just check it. Sometimes you make an error when you do New, and so you're double checking yourself. So I go to Image, Size. And this is really important because this is the most important window in Photoshop. And why do I say that is because this is your deliverable. This is what you're going to send them. This is the format that it's going to be. So it's critically important to remember that you want to check this in the very beginning and make sure intermittently you check it again to be sure that you haven't changed anything. So this is 13 by 19, 150 is what I want. This is the resolution that you get, which is pixels. So that's still a very good size for web. And I say okay. Now up here under image again, let's make note of this, is canvas is the paper size. So if I wanted to change the paper size, 13 by 19, I would do that here. Canvas does not distort the picture. Image size will distort the picture, but canvas is only your paper. So if you do need more space, you can change it here. But in most cases, you should know your deliverable. But sometimes if you're working for yourself and you realize your composition needs more room, you can add more room here, and then, but that would change the deliverable as well. You might have to resize it and so forth. But the point to be made is that canvas, which is this, is the paper size, not the image size. So you can change it. So if in my composition, if I needed more room in the lower right corner, you would click this, and whatever you add, it would add it to the lower corner. So that's very helpful when you are needing more space. Okay, so let's get started. Again, the way to bring in things is two ways. One is place embedded or place linked. The difference between place embedded is that embedded means that it is absolutely putting the image into your composite, and it takes on the gigabytes or the megabyte size of the addition. Linked does not do that. It's only a preview that you see, but you must always have the linked image with you when you do place linked. And by all best practices, you always keep all your assets, all your pictures. Assets are pictures. Assets could be an email from the client. Whatever relates to the project must be in that one folder. And I repeat, one folder. You can have multiple folders, but you want the one folder. So for our purposes, we're going to do place embedded. And there you can choose from that, your image, but you want to be sure it goes back to the folder. And there's a difference between place embedded and so forth. And what it will do is it will force the image. So watch me on this. I'll place this one. And that comes in because it probably was a lower resolution, and it comes in that size. If it's a bigger picture, it will force it to that. And here you can see is my layer, so that that image is there because I have the layer, and I can turn it on and I can turn it off. But I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to delete that image. So I'll just select and hit delete. And as you can see, it won't let me delete it because of this icon here. So if you do place embedded, you'll get these icons. You really can't change much on this. So you want to come up here to layer, go to rasterize, and rasterize that layer. Now you can select it, and now you can be able to delete it. And the reason why it's not deleting is because it's the one and only layer in the layers. So you want to create a new layer, and you can move these down. You can move these layers by simply moving them like this. Now I can delete that layer because it must have a layer here in order for it to delete. Excuse me. So again, this is one way to bring in an image which is under File, is Place Embedded, choosing your image. Let's choose another one. And there is a problem right there. So now I have a problem, and I'm happy I have a problem so that you can see problems can always happen. So let's go back to see why. And if I go back to look at this, let's take a look. What is this image? Let's see if I can get the properties. This is a web file. There you have it. You see the image, but it's not the image. So the way to get around those situations is that you could call up another program on your system, such as Paint if you're on a PC. And so if I go and open, downloads again, and I choose that image, then it will open it. And then you can save it out. So just remember, you got to look at the properties of things. Things aren't always what you would like it to be. And again, that's how you change the web format. So the other way of Place Embedded is that you would go File, Open, and open an image as such. So let's go back to open an image. And there you go. That's another web one for you. So Place or File Open will not open it. So let's look at this one. This is a JPEG. Same one. And when you File Open, you get this double click lock here. Just double click it. And you want to come up here to Image. And you want to see what it is. Remember, always open image size when you have opened up a photograph. So now you can see how small it is, right? It's 192 resolution, but it's only 2 inches. It's okay for the web. It's only 400 pixels, so it's not that big. And if I wanted to change it without distorting it, remember to unsample, resample. And if I go 150, I get a little bit better and it goes up to 3 inches. But still, that's not an optimum image. So what's important to remember when you are looking for images, let's go back to an image. When you are on Google, you want to come up here and say something like trees. I'm looking for an oak tree. Remember, when you're in Google, and I do mean Google, I don't mean Bing, I don't mean Firefox, I mean Google. Google's always going to be your best search engine. So I'm in Google, I want an oak tree. You want to come over here to Tools, and you want to look at Images first. Tools, Size, Large. And when you are looking for your image and you click it, Google will give you the image here. So let's do images, not in the Amazon ad area, but here. And when you roll over, it tells you the image right here, pixel dimension. You do not want to be under 1,000. I like to try to get 1,500. So I'll come over here, 1,600, that's better. 5,000, that's even better. So you see, the bigger you have in pixel dimension, the better the size it will be. You can always go small. You can never go large when you're in Photoshop. You can't take a layer and stretch it. So I'm going to right click, save this image, and also what you can do is rename it, And I'm going to put it in my folder. Digital imaging, and call it is a JPEG, save it. And then at this point, you can also pick it up, the location of the copyright. So that's important to know, that you want to be able to either do the times or find the location, pick up the URL so that you can create the copyright of what being able to have it as a source, so that you can give credit to it. And we'll talk about that with the librarian in the video when we talk with the librarian. So now I'm going to close this out as such. Don't want that, it's too small. Now I'm going to file open that tree and come back, look for that folder again. Always important to remember to do that. There's my tree. Open it. And let's see what size it actually is. And it gave me 5,000, which was true. Sometimes those right clicks don't always give you what they say. So this was correct. And look, it's 16 inches at 300 dpi. That's perfect. So if I take the sampling off again, and now and this is, you must, and I repeat, you toggle off that resampling. And if you change this to 150, watch what happens to the size. 150, it is now 33 inches. I'm happy because I can always scale it down, so these leaves are going to look really nice. So let's do that. Say okay. So now I'm all good. And now I want to bring this poster into my layout. This is the second way of bringing pictures into your Photoshop. Again, remember, the first way we did it was place embedded. If I did a place embedded with this image that has changed, it would force it to fit into this layout. I don't want that. I want it to be the big picture that it is, and I'm going to rescale it down once it's in my layout. The way to do that is the next step I'm going to show you. So again, place embedded, place linked forces the size to fit the layout. This way is a way that you drag and drop it into your layout. So I'm going to do that now. Let's make sure you can see this. So here I go. I'm going to mouse down on the tab that is this image of the tree. So I mouse down. And the poster happened to be next to me. Now, remember, look at your tabs up here. These are all the open files that I'm going to be doing for this video tutorial. So I opened them all up for you for the video. But you can come over here to the right corner of this arrow and mouse down, and you'll see all the images that you have opened up. That's a nice way to find that. Now, so now I have my image like this. And now you need to go to your toolbar so that I use the Move tool. And it is very good to peruse these tools so that you can see the rollover tool. So eventually, if you hover over the tool, it will show you what it does. So familiarize yourself with all the tools. Really good to do that. It's like when you buy a new car, you want to look at every knob there is in the new car. Okay, so I have the Move tool, so I'm going to come over here to the trees. I'm going to mouse down, holding the mouse down, and I'm going to drag it. And there, Photoshop is telling me I got it. Let go. Let go of the mouse. Okay, good. So now it's in there. I can close this. And it asks me, do I want to change the original source? Well, in best practices, you never overwrite your original source, ever. I'll repeat. You never overwrite the original source. You could duplicate it in another folder and save it somewhere else, but never overwrite the original source unless you know where you have a backup. So I'm going to say no. Changing it was not a big deal if I have to do it again, so I say no. Now that file has been closed. Now you can see I have a beautiful tree that's nice and big, and it comes in bigger than it is. So I'll zoom out under View here, zoom out, zoom out. And just to show you how big it actually is, I'll do a edit, transform, where are you? Transform, freeform is only, where's the freeform? There we go. Freeform is Control T. So I know that intuitively because that has always been the command for scaling. So I don't need to remember that. I know that very well. But for beginners, it's Control T for transform, which means scale. So all you do is Control T. Oh, got to come out of that first. Control T. And there is the actual size of the image. Now I'm going to use this because I'm so happy how big it is. And I'm going to use it as my poster layout. And so now you can see if you wanted to scale it, you do not need to use the Shift key. If we were in Illustrator, you would need to use the Shift key if you wanted to scale it. But Photoshop will scale it for you. If you go this way, it will scale it proportionate as well. So it's important to remember that you don't need to use a Shift key. And if you make a mistake, up here, undo is Control Z. I also know that, and pretty much that's the same in any program. So I'm going to do Control Z and bring it back to where it was. So that's the Move tool, that's the Control T transform tool, and that's the Control Z undo tool. Something we love about digital art is undo, undo, undo. And Photoshop is very good with undos. You don't need 3 fingers anymore. You just need Control Z, and it does it as many times as you like. There's actually a preference in setting that. So I am going to keep this tree because I like the fact that it's so big, and I don't mind keeping it, slamming it to the bottom. I'm fine with that. I have a little bit of blue, a little bit of the bottom, and that's fine. So that's our first tutorial. I don't want to go too long. Just to cover what we did is we started with starting the image in Photoshop, the difference between place embedded and drag and drop, and the most important thing is the digital imaging. So we'll come back and we'll talk about cleaning up edges on multiple images, but right now let's get this video rendered and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.